First of all, I want to thank Tim and those who, I don't need this thing. This has been on my heart for some time. I've did it myself, and I know Tim and Kathy does it all the time. Nobody talks about it, and that's the way it should be. Tim is my co-conspirator sometime, and Kathy too, and I appreciate that. You see, I don't want the person I'm helping to know who it is. Sometimes there's a situation where you ain't got much choice. It's an emergency type of thing. And but then you get Deb and Zeke in there to help you on those, you know. Maybe when a lady or husband takes off with the car and the money and leaves her with nothing to, hardly anything to eat. That's emergencies. You ain't got much time. But it's best if you do it and just put a rock card in there. But I've been thinking about this stuff for quite some time, and I asked Tim some months ago that if I could do it. And I picked this day in particular, this Sunday in particular, I wanted this Sunday. For simply is, what's next Friday? Black Friday. Yeah. All the ladies start smiling when you start mentioning Black Friday, and the guys cringing. Not you, eh? No, not everybody. I can't imagine getting to a store at 4 o'clock in the morning and waiting for it to open, you know. Oh! But people do it. But we're going to be thinking, when we got Thanksgiving, then we got thinking about Christmas shopping and stuff like that. And praise the Lord, I got at least half of it all done, so that's over. But I'd like to tell you a story. I did not ask permission from my wife to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Tim's heard it. A number of years ago, approximately 40-some years ago, we had made some financial decisions that were disastrous. We had nothing. We had a loved one come and pay our way back from Oklahoma. And that Christmas, we had nothing. I'd got back to work, but there was nothing to spend. We had no money to spend gifts for a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. You talk to any parent that's been through that, and they'll say, that's all the hell I wanted to have in my life. But it was tough. Somebody came through. Somebody helped us. Somebody showed us mercy. And it made it one of the grandest Christmas. I don't know what we bought. It was, but we was able to get something for our children. And it really made a big difference, and it definitely had an influence on what, I got to find one here. Missing someplace. There you are. I borrowed this from Deb a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. You remember, Deb? You will when I start on it anyway. But he said, when I was hungry, you fed me. Too many times we say, it turns out like this. I was hungry and you formed a mission humanities group to discuss my hunger. We talk about it. A lot of talk and no action. I was imprisoned and you crept off to your church and prayed for my release. You did nothing to help them. I was naked, and in your mind you debate the morality of my appearance. How many times have we seen people that we didn't like the looks of and said, man, they're a bum just because it's their own doggone fault, and if they'd pay attention, stuff like that. I was sick, and you became very thankful for your own health. That's okay to be thankful for your health, but what about the guy that's hurting, or the lady that's hurting, or the child that's hurting? Somebody needs some help. I was homeless, and you preached to me about the spiritual shelter of God. If somebody's cold and miserable outside and can't pay their heating bill and stuff like this, it ain't going to do any good to them to just go out and talk to them about or preach to them about the spiritual shelter of God. I was lonely and you agreed to pray for me. that is good to pray for them. I'm not going to say anything against that. But what about spending some time with them, being their friend, showing them the love of God? How many times has God visited us when we needed it? You seem so godly, but I'm still hungry, lonely, and cold. It goes back to those verses we just had and those beautiful songs that the people sang today. And this one, the first one, is particular interest to me because I try to sing it every morning, that first verse. Make me a blessing to somebody today. That's why I wanted it so bad, Joe May, and I appreciate you having it on there. Who am I? Make me a blessing to someone today. Now, God will make you a blessing, but don't make any promises like that unless you're ready to go. Like I said in Rexton, my mother said, when you tell God you're going to do something, you better put on your track shoes because He's going to have you off and running. He's going to take you at your word. It's either going to be get up or get out. And, boy, my mouth got dry over there too. But so many things. And then I'll get to the other song later. But in Hebrews 13:16, it says, but do not forget to do good and share. For such sacrifices, God is pleased. Isn't that what we're all about? We're here to please God. He takes such good care of us, I mean, many years ago, or quite a number of years ago, we were head over heels in debt. 5, 6 credit cards, I don't know how many it was, Kathy, but we didn't know which one was going to be hollering at us next, But we took the Dave Ramsey course, and I thank the good Lord for steering us there. We now have one credit card that we pay off every month. House and the cars are paid for. God has blessed us immensely. And so that's why I feel so strong about this stuff. Do not forget to do good and share. Oh, and I might mention I carry a savings account now, so whenever somebody hollers, they need my help, I'm able to do it. And in Romans 13:8-10, it talks about loving your neighbor. It fulfills the law. And it brings up the question is, who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? The Good Samaritan. Remember that story. The religious leader, the legal leader, and then this Good Samaritan. He was the Good Samaritan, but the Jews didn't think much of the Samaritans. Who is the neighbor? He asked the Lord. And he said, the one who showed mercy. The one who showed this wounded, busted up guy that had been robbed mercy. Clothed him, give him shelter, paid for his food. And if there's any more, when I come back, I'll pay for the rest of it. That's the neighbor. But it also says in Matthew 6:3-4, but when you do charitable deeds, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Honey, you're my left hand sometimes. That your charitable deed may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. Now, if God is excited about rewarding somebody openly, man, keep your secret. It really works. It helps. God has blessed us financially. We try to stay faithful with Him in that. It's so important. And in 4, my fourth one here is there. And when you remember all of this stuff, this is God wanting you to do it. Do these good things. Rather it be helping somebody, whatever the reason is. Somebody might need the loan of an automobile, or whatever it is. Therefore, to him who knows to do good, if you know to do good and do it not, it is sin. So if you know where somebody needs help and you don't help them out, you know it's good to help them out, and you don't help them out, then you're sin. This is so important. In Malachi 3:10, it's where God says, those who are familiar with it, it says, God says, test me. Just test me and see what I can do for you. You test me, and I will open I call it the floodgates of heaven. And he will give you rewards like you can't even imagine. And this is a season of joy. And I got this little thing here, but first I want to read to you what it is Christmas. Every time you let God love others through you, it is Christmas. Yes, it is Christmas every time you smile at your brother and offer him your hand, a hand of friendship. Now, there's lots of things that we can do. Put them aside there. I do have my, I think of it as little kids when they go for object lessons, but I assure you that most of these things, well, I don't need that. That's their bulletin. I'll get it all out here. It's really quite easy to finance these things. It's not near as hard. I got to thinking on it long and strong and getting the calculator out and going to and find out just how much it would do it if you did a little bit at a time, you know. And the biggest problem with this, you got to get a little bit organized. You got to stick with the program. That's like paying off your credit cards. You got to stick with the program. Well, I'm an avid sports page reader. That's yesterday's, Ben. You can have it if you want it. I love to read the sports page. I usually throw the rest of it in a bin so they're starting fires or something like that. That's $1.50 a day. Now, if I take one day out of that, one day a week that I do that, that adds up to $52 a year. No, that adds up to $78 a year. I got the wrong one here. $78 a year. Now that would be quite a help if somebody was hungry. Now, most of these, like I say, speak to me. We all know what that baby is. That comes out of my big lot of. That's about $1 if you go down to the marathon station and get it. That's what Dan charged me. That comes up to the $52 a year. $1 a week. $1 a week. Now, if you want to make it a little bit bigger, that's $1.79. That's before you get your bottle deposit, but then you can get that back. That is $93 a week. One bottle a week. Now this, I'm speaking to not only adults, but teenagers. Since Ben's the only one here, I'll pick up, well, there's another young lady back there. But this is for everybody. Everybody can get in on this. Because some people like to have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Now, I don't know. You like coffee or tea? Okay. And some people drink a whole lot more than one cup a day. That's all right. That's their problem. I drink the good stuff. But that would add up to $52 or more. I don't know how much a cup it is if you go buy a cup of coffee. But it's just an easy, pardon? Well, then that'll give you $26. That'll help buy some groceries, wouldn't it? Whatever it is. I don't know what it is at most places, but I've just thrown a round figure out there. But it's best if you can do it anonymous. Now, I have 3 sources to give me scouting for me. Tim keeps his eyes open for me, and I'm sure Kathy's does too, so I'm counting you as one team there. And Deb sees a lot of things up at school that and she's told me she would keep her eyes open for me up there too. Now, we got to find these people. If we want something very bad, we go looking for it, don't we? It's pure and simple. They say you make time for what you want. If I want to go play golf in the summertime, I'll make time for it. But we got to look for it. If we don't look for it, there ain't no way we're going to find it. It ain't going to just jump in your lap, this opportunities. And that's what I consider it as an opportunity. I like to use these here rock cards. I don't know how many are familiar with it, but it's random act of kindness. And I like to just put one of them in there. I did one, and all I wrote was in there was, may God bless you. But that was it. I hope I'm not taking... Tim told me over at Knobbenway that not to take an hour. So I'm trying to get through here. So, because I've been known to pick on him, I let him get by with it. But it's a blessing. People have blessed us in the past tremendously. Not only with the Christmas thing. One time right here in this very building, we had many debts that we could not handle. And they had a dinner for us, a spaghetti dinner, I believe it was, to help us out. I've been helped. Dale St. Andre come one day with his trailer and his vehicle and a power saw because I needed some wood. He said, come on, let's go. We'll get you some wood. And Dan Flew, my dear buddy Dan, whenever I need any electrical work done, Dan's right there. And usually for several other things too, especially watching my dog. But I am so blessed. It's these things. You say, well, gee, that ain't no big deal. Well, it is to the one that you're helping. It is to the one that you're helping. You see, I love my old dog. He's on his last years. He's going blind. He can't hear very much. He has his problems, but I love my old dog. And Dan takes good care of him, and I am forever thankful for that. If he gets a dog, I'll take care of that. But I've got a rather lengthy story here that I would like to read to you. I read this story every once in a while because it reminds me of what this is all about. This is supposed to be a true story, and I sure would love it to be. But even if it isn't, it's... Tim, you can close your ears you want. You heard it before. But this story said would be better than a typical Christmas card. Christmas Eve, 1881. Pa never had compassion for the lazies who squandered their means and never had enough for the necessities. But for those who were genuinely in need, his heart was as big as all outdoors. It was from him that I learned the greatest joy in life life comes from giving, not from receiving. It was Christmas Eve, 1881. I was 15 years old and feeling like the world had caved in on me because there just hadn't been enough money to get that rifle that I wanted for Christmas. We did the chores early that night for some reason. I just figured Pa wanted extra time so we could read the Bible. After supper was over, I took my boots off, stretched out in front of the fireplace, and waited for Pa to get down the old Bible. I was still feeling sorry for myself, and to be honest, I wasn't in much of a mood to read the Scriptures. But Pa didn't get down the Bible. Instead, he bundled up again and went outside. I couldn't figure it out because we had already done all the chores. I didn't worry about it long, though, because I was too busy wallowing in self-pity. Soon Pa came in. It was a cold, clear night, and there was ice on his beard. Come on, Matt. Bundle up good. It's cold outside. I was really upset then. In other words, he was ticked. Not only wasn't I getting the rifle for Christmas, now Pa was dragging me out in the cold, and for no earthly reason that I could see. We'd already done the chores, and I couldn't think of anything else that needed doing, especially not on a night like this. But I knew Pa was not very patient at one dragging his own feet when he told him to do something. So I got up and put my boots back on and got my cap, coat, and mittens. Ma gave me a mysterious smile. You know, them mothers, they can do that. As I opened the door to leave the house, something was up, but I just didn't know what. Outside, I became even more dismayed. There in front of the house was the work team, already hitched to the big sled. Whatever it was we were going to do, it wasn't going to be a short, quick little job. I could tell. We never hitched the sled up this sled unless we were going to haul a big load. Pa was already on the seat, reins in hand. I reluctantly climbed up beside him. The cold was already biting at me, and I wasn't happy. When I was on, Pa pulled the sled around the house and stopped in front of the woodshed. He got off, and I followed. I think we'll put on the high sideboards, he said. Here, help me. This high sideboards. Man, it was no longer a small job. It was bigger than I wanted to do with just the low sideboards on. But whatever it was we're going to do, it'd be a lot bigger from here. After we exchanged the sideboards, Pa went into the woodshed and came out with an armload of wood. The wood I'd spent all summer hauling down from the mountain, and then all fall sawing into blocks and splitting. Now, folks, this was crosscut saw. This wasn't no power saw. What was he doing? Finally, I said, Pa, what are you doing? Well, he said, have you been by Widow Jensen's lately? The widow Jensen lived about 2 miles down the road. Her husband had died a year or so before and left her with 3 children, the oldest being 8 years old. Sure, I'd been by, but so what? Yeah, I said, why? I rode by just today. And this where it gets hard to read. Little Jakey was out digging around in the woodpile trying to find a few chips. They're out of wood, man. That was all he said, and then he turned and went back to the woodshed for another armload of wood. I followed him. We loaded the sled so high I began to wonder if the horses would be able to pull it. Finally, Pa called a halt to our loading. So then we went to the smokehouse and brought down a big ham and a side of bacon. He handed them to me, and I told me to put them on the sled and wait. When he returned, he was carrying a sack of flour over his right shoulder and a smaller sack of something in his left hand. What's in the little sack, I asked. Shoes. They're out of shoes. Little Jakey had just gunny sacks wrapped around his feet. When he was out there in the woodpile this morning, I got the children a little candy, too. It just wouldn't be Christmas without a little candy. We rode the 2 miles to Widow Jensen's pretty much in silence. I tried to think, though, what Pa was doing. We didn't have much by worldly standards. Of course, we did have a big woodpile, though most of what was left was still in the form of logs that I'd have to saw into blocks and split before we could use it. He's feeling sorry for himself, I think. We also had meat, flour, so we could spare that. But I knew we didn't have any money, so why was Pa buying them shoes and candy? Really, why was he doing any of this? And this would sound like some of us sometimes. Widow Jensen had closer neighbors than us. It shouldn't have been our concern. We came in from the blind side on Widow Jensen's house and unloaded the wood as quietly as possible. Then we took the meat and the flour and the shoes to the door. We knocked. The door opened a crack, and a timid voice said, "Who is it?" "Lucas Miles, ma'am, and my son Matt. Could we come in for a bit?" Widow Jensen opened the door and let us in. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The children were wrapped in another and sitting in front of the fireplace by a very small fire that hardly gave off any heat at all. Widow Jensen fumbled with a match and finally lit the lamp. "We brought you a few things, ma'am." Pa sat down with the sack of flour. I put the meat on the table. Then Pa handed her a sack that had the shoes in it. She opened it hesitantly and took the shoes out, one pair at a time. There was a pair for each of the children, one for her and one for each of the children. Sturdy shoes, the best shoes that would last. I watched her carefully. She bit her lower lip to keep from trembling, and tears filled her eyes and started running down her cheeks. She looked up at Pa like she wanted to say something, but it just wouldn't come out. "We brought you a load of wood too, ma'am," Pa said. He turned to me and said, "Matt, go bring in enough wood to last a while. Let's get this fire up to size and heat this place up." I wasn't the same person when I went out to bring in the wood. I had a big old lump in my throat, as much as I hate to admit it, and there were tears in my eyes, too. In my mind, I kept seeing those three kids huddled in front of the fireplace, and the mother standing there with tears running down her cheeks and so much gratitude in her heart she couldn't even speak. My heart swelled with me, and a joy I had never known before filled my soul. I had given at Christmas many times before, but never when it made so much difference. I could see we were literally saving the lives of these people. I soon had a fire blazing, and everyone's spirits soared. The children started giggling when Pa handed them each a piece of candy, and Widow Jensen looked on with a smile and that probably hadn't crossed her face for a long, long time. She finally turned to us. "God bless you," she said. "I know the Lord sent you. The children and I have been praying that He would send one of His angels to spare us." In spite of myself, the lump returned to my throat and the tears welled up in my eyes again. I never thought of Pa in those exact terms before, but after Widow Jensen mentioned it, I could see it was probably true. I was sure that better man than Pa had never walked the earth. I started remembering all the times he had gone out of his way for Ma and me and the others. It seemed endless as I thought on it. Pa insisted that everyone try on the shoes before he left. I was amazed when they all fit, and I wondered how he had known what sizes to get. Then I guessed that if he was on an errand from the Lord, that the Lord would make sure that he got the right sizes. Tears were running down Widow Jensen's face again when we stood up to leave. Pa took each kid in his long, big arms and gave them a hug. They clung to him like they didn't want us to go. I could see that they missed their Pa, and I was glad I still had mine. At the door, Pa turned to Widow Jensen and said, "The missus wanted me to invite you and the children over for Christmas dinner. The turkey will be more than the three of us can eat, and a man can get cantankerous if he has to eat turkey for too many meals. We'll be by to get you about 11. It'll be nice to have some little ones around again. Matt here hasn't been little for quite a while. I was the youngest. 2 brothers and 2 sisters had married and moved away." Widow Jensen nodded and said, "Thank you, Brother Miles. I don't have to say, may the Lord bless you, because I know He certainly will." Out on the sled, I felt a warmth from deep within and didn't even notice the cold. When we'd gone away, Pa turned to me and explained, "Matt, I want you to know something. Your Ma and me had been tucking a little money away here and there all day, all year long, so we could buy that rifle for you. We just didn't have quite enough. Then yesterday, a man who owed me a little money from years back came by and made things square. Your Ma and me were so excited, thinking about how we could get you that rifle. And I started to town this morning to do just that. But on the way, I saw little Jakey out scratching in the woodpile and in the snow with his feet wrapped in those gunny sacks, and I knew what I had to do. I hope you understand." Oh, I understood, and my eyes became wet with tears again. I understood very well, and I was so glad that Pa had done it. Now the rifle seemed low on my list of priorities. Pa had given me a lot more. He had given me the look on Widow Jensen's face and the radiant smiles on 3 children. For the rest of the way, my life, I saw it whenever I saw the Jensens, or whenever I split a block of wood. I remembered, and remembering brought back the same joy I felt riding home beside Pa that night. Pa had given me more than a rifle that night. He had given me the best Christmas of my life. God bless you. I want to thank you for putting up with this, but it seems so important. It's just one moment here. When I get emotional, my nose runs. But it doesn't take a whole lot to put the joy in someone else's heart. Sometimes it's just a smile. Sometimes it takes a little bit more effort from each and every one of us. But remember that one verse. For him that knows what it is to do good, knows the good to be done, and don't do it, it's a sin. That's the same with me. I forgot to bring my mirror, and I'm going to tell you why I used to bring one all the time. A double-faced mirror. The regular side was towards the people I was talking to, and the magnified side was towards me. I believe it says in the Bible that they hold those who are speaking and teaching much more responsible than the ones that they're talking to. Am I right on that, Tim? Okay. I just want to make sure. But that's about all I have to say. It's Christmas. It's the joy of Christmas. I got to find my... And I go back to this old thing, and I do it every once in a while for myself. Christmas is the joy time of year. It's supposed to be. Too many times there's people out there that are hurting. If we help them just a little bit, it just gives them a tremendous feeling, a good start for a new year. But Lou probably remembers the sign too that used to be in the back of the Germfast church. I mention it every once in a while. Joy. The joy of Christmas is Jesus first, yourself last, and others in between. But these people that he talks about here in the 25th chapter of Matthew, these are his people. These are him. If you're doing it to them, you're doing it for him. That's all I ask is that you think about it. It's not me that says you got to do this. You got to deal with that situation between you and the good Lord. That's up to you. When we sin, it ain't sinning against somebody else so much as sin separates us from God, and we sure don't want that. I thank you, and may God bless you. And when it comes to that Christmas season, have a great one. I want to be yours.